Hi everyone, this is Jo Kelly, and I am going to have a conversation with Louise that is coming probably soon. She is going to join us soon. I don't know if you see me already, Louise. I'm in there.
Yeah.
I don't see you yet.
Oh, it's just gone. I
So,
see you now.
you see me now? So Louise is also on Zoom just behind, so you know. And that's how we... Okay, I see your request. And then as soon as you're here, we can close this. And we're going to be talking about Louise's experience with this work and how she reset her mind. Okay, I'm going to turn off Zoom.
There you are.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Yay. All right, so nothing's planned, but we know that we have some time to chat. And so tell me where you're calling from.
I'm calling from London.
From London. Great. When did you finish your reset journey?
I finished my reset journey end of last week.
Ooh, I don't know. Sometimes Instagram does things when we put our hands.
We're creating our own, right?
Yeah, congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Well, let's dive in. How was it to reset?
It was transformational in every sense. I had a sense, I mean, I've been, without sounding too stalkery, I've been following you on YouTube for a very long time, waiting for the right time.
Yeah.
In other words, gearing myself up. I graduated, so I'm a new actor, so obviously not first career. And I finished drama school last summer, so this is my first year as a working actor. So yeah, I've been sort of, learning, shopping, watching, learning, trying, failing, auditioning, obviously, all of that. And I, as I say, following you for a good year or so, I would say, sort of curious, wanting to learn more, waiting for the time to be right. The time was right, and I joined. So I had a sense of what it might be like, obviously, in terms of having followed you, listened to lots of your videos and the initial material. So I knew it would help, period.
Yeah.
In the sense of I knew, and I knew a sense of what you were offering, but I never appreciated how helpful it would be professionally and be personally, and that's been the joy.
Yeah, because resetting has nothing to do with me, right? So you can listen to me talk for 3 years, and yet you'd still not have the experience of being your full self. And I think that's what the experience of resetting really is. It's not working with me, it's working with you, right? It's getting
Absolutely.
access to you. So how is it to have that access and that experience?
It's so freeing. It's so new that I'm still adjusting to it.
Yeah.
Like a sort of finding of self, without sounding too spiritual, too XYZ. It's so I would say it's been adjusting doesn't do it justice, but I'm adjusting to it. I'm adjusting to me post reset. And it's just been such a tonic. It's been, I really have a sense of purity. I have a sense of curiosity, which I haven't always had, about myself and about the world and about acting. And I feel like the acting itself, the ceiling is even higher. I knew obviously coming in, I knew I'm playing catch up. I'm a certain age. But I feel the ceiling's even higher in an exciting way, not an unreachable way, which for me personally, I'm someone that needs that. I need and want that sort of challenge. I need to be um, learning and growing all the time. It's like an insane hunger. And I feel like that's really, the reset's really propelled all of that, answered so many questions, but also created so much more space for me to find out more.
Yeah, yeah, amazing. So how, now that you're feeling this, if we go back to before your reset, how were you feeling before that?
Yeah, I'm going to draw a tiny little analogy that's been on my mind over the last couple of days, and it's this notion of actors having impulses. And when I first decided to become an actor, and I came via dance, so I sort of had that journey. I used to hear all the time this terminology of an actor having an impulse. Oh, he had a good impulse, or he had a really strong idea, or in drama school, sort of, just listen to your impulse. Never understood what that was. It never came to me. I never experienced it, and everything's been so new to me in this journey of acting, and so I just assumed it would come in due course, hoped it would come in due course, and it's not until I started the reset that I really started to understand what that was, and then it occurred to me that I couldn't hear inside before, and so my entire mind and body, if we simplify it that way, was closed off to hearing impulses. So I didn't understand it because I didn't have access to it, and that's probably been the biggest change. And even then, even though I'm reset and I'm feeling a huge change, I feel I'm only starting to hear.
There's more, right? Because it's infinite. That's the joy of resetting, is that you are alive material and you're in constant expansion. And so there's always more. But what I think is really interesting, I'll actually have to talk to you about that outside of this, but because I'm actually making a documentary about this. But coming from a dancer to hear that you couldn't hear your body
makes no sense, right?
Like it makes sense because I work with deconditioning, so I know we're all completely conditioned inside a cage or a straightening jacket, and we've been asked to disconnect from our body and in our feelings and our thoughts and our curiosity and our trust and everything that makes us human. So inevitably, you're disconnected from your impulses, but then you become a professional mover, right? You become a professional dancer, and still, and in the documentary I'm doing, I'm interviewing dancers, and that's what comes back to, not only to be disconnected from the impulse, to not be able to hear the impulse, and therefore as a professional dancer in a conditioned patriarchal system, whatever you want to call it, pushing, even though I don't hear my impulse, I'm going to push and force my body and demand and compete with it, and so I'm going to hurt myself. And it's sad.
It is. And my dance style was cabaret and burlesque, so not quite this. I mean, I can't talk objectively, but I feel maybe if it had been contemporary or something like that, maybe I would have been further ahead on that journey. I don't know. I can't answer that. Dance certainly for me as an experience was very choreographically led. And the nature of fast-paced dance gives less room to fill the space to be impulsive, because you're with a troupe. It's more about technique, and so difficult to say. But the fact of not hearing impulse and not being able to act in it is a fact, irrespective. There's no placebo, is there? But
it's incredible. It's incredibly sad for everyone. Okay, so impulses. And so how do you weave in, or do you not weave in, your more traditional, because you did an acting school when you decided to become an actor, and how different was it to resetting?
Very. And for me, all the classes and schooling I've done in acting has been helpful. I try and experiment with everything. So everything I've done has clearly given me something. And I would say a foundation. when I graduated and started working, obviously the bar is high, auditions are difficult. I think for me, this first year, I had such fear around the audition process. You're obviously learning technically how it's done, technologically how it's done. There's so much to sort of contend with, but I felt really rapidly disappointed with the fact that I didn't enjoy the process.
Yeah.
And so then I was fortunate to be getting auditions. Wasn't getting as many as I liked, but obviously attributed that to being new and sort of, but it was the fact that I didn't enjoy the process. And I'm someone that really has this thirst, as I mentioned, for learning. And it just became like this real barrier. And every time an audition would come in, I would just have this fear and sort of apprehension. And of course, that gets in the way of performance, etc. So I think one of the huge takeaways, and there are many of having done the reset, but I think very quickly into the process, the impulses came later for me in the process of the reset, and as I say, are still going. But the audition process was a transformational change. As soon as I began the reset, more auditions started coming in. I started enjoying them. Of course, that translates into doing a better job. In terms of win rate, that increased. Even in the space of a month, most of the auditions that I'm doing, I'm booking. And that
amazing.
Is transformation. I'm not being modest. It was like awful to begin with, because I was just battling with all these things, and it felt like, so there was no space for me to even deliver, let alone having impulses to do an even better job. So that has been a huge turnaround.
Wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that.
And you're not sort of taught in drama school. There's obviously a basis as a foundation, but obviously you're learning much more about the protocol of an audition rather than how you ace it, because I suppose, in fairness, that is to an extent down to the individual, but how what if you don't master that? What if you never work that out? What if it always becomes an uphill struggle?
Which is why I started researching myself when I was an actor. I started a bit late too, and started to study acting wherever I could, because I was like you, I was so hungry. And so I was doing all the workshops and all the schools and all the master classes and everywhere. And I was good, but it was painful. And therefore I wasn't great. And then I looked around and I was like, how is everyone feeling this? There's only that one odd one, one out of 1,000 that I would see that was just like, boo, boo, boo. And I was like, what's going on over there? Because none of us are liking this process. So I got to dig in and figure out what's going on. So that's the genesis for the reset, is definitely that very precise sensation of contracting in the moment of audition when it's your art form. So there's no reason for contracting. If you're really doing what you love, that's the moment where you would be enjoying it.
And yet it's start of the process. And if you're not, it doesn't bode well for anything else to come.
Yeah.
If success is clear.
Absolutely. Yeah. That makes sense. Is there anything that you feel that you haven't shared in this conversation that you would want to share about your experience in the reset?
I think it's changed. I could say changed my life, and of course, but how do you then sort of put that into a way that makes sense? Since last week, my day takes an entirely different shape, and my day begins with a walk in nature. I come in, there's possibly an element of fasting. I begin with some of the exercises that you have shared with me. And that's the very start of my day before I do anything. So that 2 hours is, or thereabouts, is my period to prepare for the day, whether it's an audition coming, I do some writing as well, but whatever's coming. And I didn't know how to incorporate, how to train my instrument. I didn't know how to train myself in a day-to-day basis. I've got all the books, I've been to all the classes, and they're all extremely helpful, but I feel like now I have actual tools and a way of keeping myself ready, but also progressing as well.
Yeah.
And
Well, you
it's
have your own, you have access to your own instrument, right? Because the books are
like,
nice, they're all interesting for sure, but at the end of the day, what's acting is your human instrument. So that's the one you train. It doesn't happen out there. It really happens inside of you. Yeah.
that's it. And so and then I'm ready for the day. And
Yeah.
so I'm almost like today I was sort of like willing, unusually didn't have an audition and I was sort of ready for it. And equally, if it
Yeah.
doesn't, have more energy.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best
Yeah.
way to
Yeah,
verbalize
you definitely feel ready. That's amazing. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing yourself, Louise. I really appreciate you and spending time with you.
it.
And I
And
know I'm going to see you soon.
you
Yeah.
are, and thank you. It's been the biggest gift. So
Oh,
thank you for that.
thank you. Well, I I feel like it's a dance. Like if helping people reset is an art, like I'm the lucky one because I get to play with human instruments. And in a way, I don't do any of it. I just, remind you what you already know. So it's really a delight to, meet instruments and humans like you so that we can play together.
That was modest, but I'll take it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
wonderful. Perfect. Well, thank you so, so much. It's time to go to bed in London, and
It
I'll see you
is.
soon. Yeah.
It is. Thank you.
All right, great. Bye, Louise. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.